Hello again, here for another video, and this one's gonna be a little bit more ranty than I usually am, and that says a lot compared to my other videos. Now, as far as comic book characters go, America Chavez, a lot of wasted potential there, especially with how much she's shoehorned in with what she's got. Despite her being fairly new, she's got a lot going for her. Despite that, she's already got two conflicting origins, a whole diversity love triangle deal, complicated villains, and a ton of adventures that seem inconsistent with one another. And usually for comics like that, especially for known characters, takes years or even decades to get through that point. So for her to go through that development so quickly is very insulting, especially since anytime she's written, it's meant to be as this big thing, this huge deal to her or anyone else. Like her first solo comic alone was 2 pages full of separate panels of people just complimenting her, saying she's the best, and that's a pretty big thing to do for a character we have no idea on and just automatically assume she's supposed to be this big deal. And even then, once we actually see her, we're not exactly that impressed. But for some reason, people love her, and I'm confused. Why is she so entertaining? I've read the comics, I've seen her interpretations from either Marvel Rising or just her own solo adventures, or even additions in Hawkeye, Young Avengers deal, and Avengers West Coast. But also, when you see her, you feel like she's given too much, but also not enough attention, if that makes any sense. For a character like that, you need to have some sort of hook, draw for her to actually stand out in her own way. And when you do, you have to make sure that when they are standing out, it's in a good way. Her, it always seems like they can't ever narrow it down what they're trying to do with her. Now, I'm making this video as far as explaining things that could help her character, as well as maybe a bit at the end saying how they could fix those issues and even some of her storylines. I've seen a lot of people do it already. I'm not trying to be anything new or original. I'm just putting my own interpretation on it. To start off, first rule to do, don't make her so strong. What made Superman so impressive back in the day, or what helped him mellow out these recent years? They toned down his strength. Her, America Chavez, is apparently strong enough to throw cars, punch holes into reality, and go toe-to-toe with some of the strongest Avengers, despite her being 17 or something like that? Why is that supposed to be fun if she's that unbelievably strong? She can fly, has super strength, obviously, can create portals, punches stars into the earth, and can, at what point is that supposed to be fun? That's like the dollar store equivalent of what a superhero can do. And very basic, mind you. Superman's evolved over the years since he was the first superhero. That was his whole deal, what he was meant to be, where that was being impressive. Whereas her, it's not as good as, say, Spider-Man with a spider sense or Thor with a giant magic hammer. And then there's the whole deal with she doesn't really have any villains to fight her. And that makes it more difficult to make her more engaging. When she's so strong, she makes every fight look so easy, and then just makes it seem like it's all meant to be a huge ego boost. There's been ego boost characters before. Iron Man's the most popular one for that matter. Difference is he actually has villains and villainesses that make him struggle, that push him to the edge for his own intelligence and mechanical prowess with his armor. Her, it's just a matter of how many punches will it take for her to win. And even then, it's not even that entertaining when you see it. You just see her punch someone, they're out. And then you're left wondering, was I supposed to be impressed or was I supposed to be mildly entertained for the moment? For me, I'm neither because of how little there is, even. Like, oh yeah, you see her punch out someone? Big deal, the fight's over. I have no reason to be engaged further if any fight's gonna be like that. So, narrow down her powers. Like, make her still strong, but also give her some sort of disadvantage to make her, like, more capable in a fight. To make her want to earn that victory. Like, say, with Superman his kryptonite, Hulk his anger, Thor the hammer, Captain America his own humanity, that sort of deal. Give them a villain, give her a villain that actually pushes her to her limits. Like actual limits, not just make her punch a little harder this time, rather than just make it be like, boom, done, let's spend the rest of the issue talking about how awesome she is. And I'd be joking if that isn't how it goes. Second, narrow down her origin story. Let's see, is she from an alternate plane of reality where her two mothers sacrificed themselves to keep her protected and sent her to Earth where she became powerful? Or is she a lab experiment from a privately funded evil billionaire that made her and dozens of other kids their test subjects? I'm not even joking, like, how is that supposed to be a good parallel between the two? Especially when one is apparently the retcon for the other. Like, seriously, what was wrong with keeping her being like a visitor from space, even? I mean, or just a visitor into a new world trying to adapt. I mean, Star-Lord did it for Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, even Thor is another worldly visitor. And they're incredibly popular because they stuck with that deal. Her, we're just supposed to go with, oh wait, she was apparently just some sort of lab rat that survived. Yeah, that is not as engaging as you'd want it to be, especially since it comes at a point in her life where it's all her powers are fading, she's not being as strong, and then she's got to find out where she really came from, and that alone would have been nice if they, had some sort of figuration for saying that she's grown weaker instead of just suddenly say, boom, she's grown weaker and needs a sudden fix for that. Now, why am I belly aching if there's been lab experiments type heroes like that before in Marvel Comics even? I mean, Bruce Banner, Peter Parker, Steve Rogers. I mean, I can keep going. There's examples of that happening with good success. Issue is, it came at a point where we were already established to knowing that she's from another world, and that's it. There was nothing wrong with that. I was fine with it. Had I not been told in a later series that she's gonna be, oh yeah, this one random kid that, while her mothers did help her try and cure her of something, which, bad luck that did in the long run. And then there's also how she kept at a strong pace her majority of her life, and then boom, came back. Never made sense. So here's a bottom line. Keep her origin stuck on one. Either make a good point to say that she's a lab experiment, failed test subject. Make it coherent and believable enough to where her later struggles are more believable and inspirational in the long run. Or keep with the logic that she's from a different planet or universe even. I mean, that's happened before, has worked, and no one batted an eye unless you point it out. And when it's pointed out, you lose some of the focus. Like, say, if you see a movie reviewer, case in point, pointing out the flaws of a film. Now, here's point number 3. A better personality. Is it fun to see a character like her, always so smug, strong, tough all the time? To seemingly have no weakness and just power through any sort of emotional moment without showing how it can really affect them? No. That is not fun or at all believable. I mean, even some of the strongest heroes have their hard times and they show how it's affected them. Her, she goes through some hard time and then she's just like powering through it, being like, oh, I'm so tough, I can't, like, I don't care. That is not at all like fun. I'm supposed to think that I'm supposed to root for her like this? I'm supposed to root for the girl that's just always so sure of herself because the writers make her that way. They make her so sure of herself because of all she went through. And then there's the other thing. We have no idea what she went through. We have no idea what made her like this way. We don't know if she was always like that or if she grew to be like that because of where she's from, being from another world and all, or being suddenly transported there. But also, here's the thing. Yes, she lost her parents. Yes, she's from another world. But, like I said before, there have been heroes that are like that. I mean, even the parallel Star-Lord is like that. He lost his mom and his dad's a douche in either version of the comics where he's a warlord or the movies where he's a planet. He's an asshole, like there's no defense against that. But he tried not to let that impact him all the way through his life. He grew in his own way and adapted regardless of the pain that it caused him. Here, with America, it's like, I'm pissed and that's how it's always going to be, no matter what. I'm always going to be pissed and no one's going to understand that. It's like, it's not directly said, but that's how it gives off to me at least. Like, imagine if you went to someone else with some sort of a torment. Like, say, you're going, oh, I broke my arm, it hurts like hell. And they're like, I never had feeling in my legs at all. And then you're like, oh, but my arm is worse. This is like horrible pain. I could at least feel it. That's sort of like how I feel about that. Where you're belly aching over an issue where someone can complain just as much as you can, but takes it with better stride than most. Where they can actually grow, learn past it, find some sort of closure instead of just looking like they never got over it. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. People can grieve in their own way, but in the case scenario of this girl, I feel she could easily grow past all that pain and show herself to be a better hero and better person by default because of it. Now, then there's the other thing, her actual development. Once we meet her, we're dropped right into where she's already so strong and so powerful that she knows what she can and can't do. Now, unlike, say, the parody of it, like One Punch Man, where that whole deal was he was at the peak of his power at the beginning of his story, the reason why that worked is because that was the joke. He was always going to be so much stronger than everyone else. Well, the joke is a bit different here in the case scenario of Marvel, where you're not at all entertained if a character is just that unbeatable. That's why Superman's gets some flagged sometimes because he's so powerful, but he's shown off more weak than anything else. Why is this important? Because what good is seeing a hero struggle if you can't see them, grow past it? Like when I mentioned her emotional element, the same can apply to her using her powers. Her growing into them to show how much of a shock it can be to go from being a regular girl, as far as she knew, to growing strong enough to carry cars over her head or fast enough to fly over an entire city in seconds. Seeing that development, seeing them grow, can show a different side of them that we didn't see before. Same thing with any sort of Avengers, like Iron Man. We knew he struggled in his past, but because of that one experience, we knew that he grew past it to become his own better person, a real hero instead of just this billionaire tycoon that sells everything to anyone. Now, what can help with this is, say, show off what her family life was like, who her friends were. I mean, we only saw glimpses of them, like in America Chavez 2018, where we saw who adopted her when she came to Earth. The regular family, the Santiagos, I believe. Could be wrong on that name. Where she's put into the regular situations of a girl her color in that neighborhood would adapt. Thing is, though, it's only brief glimpses. It's like, oh, you already can see that. I mean, it's almost like a big tease, really, for how people can interpret that. It's like people want to see the good development, the zero to hero deal, but they're like, oh yeah, we don't want to see that. We just want to see her being awesome, and then cuts right back to it. And why am I supposed to be fulfilled seeing that? I want to see more. I want to see some drama, some development, some real struggle for her. Now, is that supposed to be fun? Just seeing that rug pull? Hell no. It's not at all going to be an engaging topic for anyone if they're just going to be like that. Or even the stories centered on just her, if they're just going to cut to the chase much quicker and with even fewer expectations met. Like, seriously, you could see her build up to a whole fight and an issue, and then went boom, one shot later, and just spend the rest of it doing nothing or just random stuff. You're left wanting more, and I feel that if there was a confident writer behind her stories, easily could be done. Now, here comes my final point, which I feel needs to be addressed the greatest. Stop being in the freaking reader's face. I mean, good God, people. Why is it so important that she's both Hispanic and lesbian? Why is that such a big deal if there's already minority characters of those deal in comics? Oh, she's a Latina or different color than the usual white? Well, there's also Black Panther, Storm, Miles Morales, some good diverse characters there, with some good development as well, to show off what they can do without being, a whole big deal about it. Oh, she's LBGTQ, part of that community. Well, so is a bunch of other people, like, say, the very good Wiccan and Hulkling storylines. They're a gay couple, they're both guys, and they're both written really well, like an actual couple, rather than just being, the whole stereotype deal, where they're so high pitched voice, fancy dressing, and that big spiel. Like, is that supposed to be entertaining if you just have a character meant to be a whole thing that you want a gay character? Well, if you got that, then why is she so annoying and in your face about it? Seriously. Constantly, I'm reminded of how much she's a lesbian because either her saying it or other side characters mentioning it, or just being heavily implied. Even then, I doubt that's much. And I get you're wondering, like, who are you to talk? You're not gay, and I'm bisexual. I know who I like, who I love, who I want to love, and have met people who are gay, lesbians, or mixed in between, and they can agree with my statement on how much in your face that is for them. Where it's not engaging or empowering if you see a character such as that. It comes off more insulting that she was just made to be fill in the minority character. And very poorly, I may add. And I may not look like it, but I am in fact Hispanic descent from my father's side. So I know how it is to explain my Hispanic pride either to myself or to my community. Even then, I don't get the whole deal of why people are saying, oh, she's a big deal because she's Latina. And I'm like, so? There's a lot of different characters in Marvel comics Marvel, DC, and comics in general that are different color or different ethnicity. Don't know why I messed with that. That are very diverse in their own right, and that aren't in your face about it. Sure, one could argue Black Panther's like that, black superhero from Africa, but also there's good examples, Static Shock, Virgil Hawkins from DC. He's a black character, he was born in Dakota, and he's in his own community. It's a big deal since he's a black character, but it's not said right, and even then, when it's brought up, it's mentioned with a good message behind it. To point out, racism, diversity in a school setting, in the neighborhood, how that can affect everyone around you, not just people being, Mexican, African American, Asian American, etc., in that sense. Thing is, though, there's better ways to write a gay character like this. Like, I even have an example. Throughout the comics, there's jokes and jabs about her hitting on Kate Bishop, the new Hawkeye. And all the time, there's jokes about her. Like, say, one joke is her just saying, I know how she looks at me. And that's just really annoying and not at all realistic. I mean, I doubt if a person said to their gay friend that they're straight, I'm pretty sure the friend would be just okay with that. Like, they won't be constantly saying it. What could have been better, however, is if, say, when she first started out, like, say, growing up, she's learning her powers, learning her whole deal, who she is, then she meets a friend. She meets a young Kate Bishop before she became Hawkeye, or even before she decided to train to become a hero. They interact, they mess around. America hangs out with her more, finds that she loves being around her. And when they're old enough and both heroes in their own right, Kate being Hawkeye, America being her own hero for her town or anywhere in general, they could hang out one day. And then America is admitting her own feelings to Kate, where she finally admits what she's been hiding all her life and says, I'm in love with you. Where she's generally convinced that she loves Kate Bishop because she's always been confused on her feelings, and being around her solidified them, and can even make things more engaging between their relationship when Kate says she's straight. It can be an emotional struggle for America if she goes through that. If she can go through the pain of being rejected by someone she genuinely care for and wish to be with, and maybe wonder that it could be harder for her to open up to anyone else as much as she had with Kate, her best friend, than it would be finding an actual girlfriend with someone else. Recommendations or not, it can be difficult for someone to go through serious amounts of trauma, like with her losing her parents and then later being rejected by someone she liked. It could lead to some interesting development where she tries to become her own hero and then even point out where she's all hard-headed and smug, and then someone can call her out on that. Point out she's being a bit much, being a bit rude, and that could bring her to an emotional breakdown. Let the walls clear so her emotions can go out and finally express how she is to not only Kate, but also a new group of friends she could make. Some friends she made with the Young Avengers, with the actual Avengers, regular vigilantes even. The X-Men. She's got range and can meet other people who can give their own good advice, like they have done one another in the past. She doesn't have to be this whole big deal where she's the one lesbian Latina superhero that's made to be unbeatable. She can have more to her character than just that. She can have depth. She could have some baggage that generally weighs her down. She could have noticeable weaknesses and limitations that make her stand out than an average superhero would. Even a throwaway character that you won't see anymore in regular comics, but a real character you plan to make stay and develop more. Bottom line is, make her more engaging. Actually, develop her more often. Show more of a character than just what we're seeing. Have some lighter moments. Have some darker moments. Have all the moments in between. Just try and make better use of a character such as her. Because, frankly, when you have one as generic or as in your face as that, you really aren't going to have as much love or as intention as you'd want them to be. And even then, you'd want them to be as good as you know they can be, and as many fans as she has. I wanted that out there. I feel satisfied. Bye.